The Adventure of the Vocabulary of the King James Bible, Chapter 7. Welcome back. In Chapter 6 we were looking at prepositions as part of our delving into personal pronouns. A preposition reveals a relationship of words in a sentence, and the prepositions are such as under, over, to, by, at, etc. These are prepositions. Going to turn to possessive pronouns. If you remember from our pronoun chart, possessive pronouns show the ownership or relationship that pronouns have to the nouns that they represent. The possessive pronoun that are commonly found in the King James Bible are still in use today. Possessive pronouns like my, mine, our, your, his, hers, its, and their. The words thy and thine are not used today. Thy. Thy is a second person singular pronoun, one person being directly spoken to, that shows possession. God spoke to Abraham regarding his possession. Genesis 22:2. Take now thy son. Another example, Proverbs chapter 1 verse 8. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. Thy, my. These are possessive pronouns. My, the first person. Thy, the second person. My and mine, thy and thine. Mine and thine. Well, they're the same as my and thy, except when they're used in connection with a noun beginning with the vowel sound or the letter H. So it's mine I in Lamentations 3 verse 51. Mine eye affecteth mine heart, because of all the daughters of my city. I is a vowel, so instead of my eye, it's mine eye. City does not begin with a vowel, so it's not mine city, it's my city. Heart has a soft-sounding H name. I used to get into a lot of trouble when I was young because the place where I was born and raised spoke differently from the place where I went to school. Where I went to school, one did not drop one's H's from words. I can remember getting 6 of the best for saying it was an hot day instead of saying it was a hot day. In fact, if you listen carefully to my diction, especially if I'm getting a little tired, I tend to drop my H's even now. But mine is used instead of my, so we don't say my heart, we say mine heart, and the King James Bible certainly does. In the same way that the possessive pronoun thy becomes thine when followed by a word beginning with a vowel or the letter H. So we see then Abishai, then said Abishai to David, taken from 1 Samuel 25:8, God hath delivered thine enemy into thine hand this day. Enemy starts with a vowel, so it's thine, it's not thy enemy, thine enemy. And hand starts with a soft sounding H, so it's thine hand this day. The soft sounding H, because the letter H is typically considered soft, it's not sounded out. There are exceptions to this rule because it's the sound of the noun, not necessarily the spelling, that determines which pronoun will be used. And this allows the text to sound better. So we find in John 20:27, the opposite of the previous verse, reach hither thy hand. There are two H sounds together here, hither and hand. So if we look at this example, it's John 20:27. Then saith he to Thomas, reach hither thy finger, and behold my hands, and reach hither thy hand, and thrust it into my side, and be not faithless, but believing. If the clause, the part of the sentence, were rewritten using rigid guidelines, the text would read, reach hither thine hand. But if you look at the rhythm of it, reach hither thy finger, reach hither thy hand. They're kept together. Reach hither thy finger, reach hither thine hand. But there's a problem with pronunciation and sound here. So, more importantly, it would sound like, reach hither thine hand, because the emphasis would be off the H of hand. Hand would sound like and, making the clause sound unclear. The same principle applies to the articles an. When a comes before nouns that begin with a vowel. What does it matter? Well, perhaps you're asking yourself, what does it matter? Why don't you just replace these old words with you and be done with it? After all, it's good enough for modern speech. The problem lays in our present use of the word you, which is ambiguous and indistinct. You is used both as a singular and plural pronoun. It can be one person or more than one person. But it's also used as the subject and the object of the verb. So replacing thee and ye with you would cloud the meaning of important passages. Ye versus you. John 3:7. Marvel not that I say unto thee, ye must be born again. Let the pronouns speak clearly. Marvel not that I say unto thee. Thee is singular. Jesus was speaking to Nicodemus. He was speaking to one person. He was telling this to Nicodemus. He wasn't telling it to the disciples and everybody else, so he was recounting this to Nicodemus. But after the comma, he makes a broad application using the plural ye. Although Jesus was directly addressing Nicodemus, his admonition to be born again extended beyond Nicodemus alone to all of us. And this is accomplished simply by the use of the second person pronoun. Subject, object, singular, plural. These archaic pronouns are vital tools in understanding the complexity and depth of this sentence, and indeed this doctrine. Ye is called the nominative pronoun, meaning that it's directly linked to the main verb, it's the subject of the verb. This harmless little two-letter pronoun specifically identifies a plural subject, a group that is creating or initiating the action of the primary verb. Let's do a case study. This is taken out of John 13, verse 13. Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say well, for so I am. The pronoun ye is used twice. Each time it shows that the disciples were responsible for initiating the verbs call and say. They were the ones doing the calling and the saying. The following verse again illustrates the use of ye as the subject of the verb, the nominative pronoun. Matthew 7, verse 16. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Who is the subject directly linked or responsible for the action of shall know? The answer is the plural ye. Why is this important? This is doctrinally important because it means that all the readers would be able to know, not just a select committee or somebody with a specialized training or academic qualification. He said ye. That's everybody. Thee is an objective pronoun, meaning the person receives the action of the main verb. It's the object. Thee is also singular. Only one person receives the work of the verb. A case study taken from Acts chapter 10, verse 19. While Peter thought on the vision, the Spirit said unto him, Behold, 3 men seek thee. The object of their search was Peter and none other. Thou is the second person singular nominative pronoun, is the subject. The author or speaker is directly addressing one person and is assigning the work of the verb to that individual. Thou should never be replaced with the plural objective case you. Certainly isn't in the King James Bible. Imagine the wreck that you'd get if you replaced you for thou in a scripture. John 17:5, and now, O Father, glorify you me with you. And now, O Father, glorify you me with you. Or your own self. Glorify you me with your own self. How it reads in the King James is, and now, O Father, glorify thou me with thine own self, with the glory which I had. It's the mystery of the gospel, isn't it? Now we come to some really wonderful verb endings. Yes, I know, and I'm excited about it because it's unique really now to the Bible. Modern Bibles don't and can't do this. We're talking about the verb endings est, st, eth, and th. And how it goes is this. When the second person goes with a verb, the verb ends in est or st. When the third person is linked to the verb ends with eth or th. In Scripture, pronouns have verbs directly tied and linked to them, which are indicated by the verb ending est, eth. Examples: thou speakest, thou thinkest, thou givest, he speaketh, he thinketh, he giveth. Now this isn't mixed up anywhere within the King James Scriptures, so you can always tell which pronoun the verb is actually linked to. Who's the subject, who's the object, whether it's second person, third person, or first person. The pronouns change and the verb endings change. The result of this is there's no doubt about the connection between pronoun and verb when this supposedly antiquated grammar is used. An example of this, when Pilate interrogates Jesus, he inquired, "Art thou the King of the Jews?" The response is definite. It's aimed solely at one man. Matthew 27 verse 11. And Jesus answered unto him, Thou sayest. If Christ had responded, You say, that's what everybody is saying, that's not the point he's trying to make. Pilate had the state's authority, the emperor's authority, to release somebody. And Jesus asks him. it's an important consideration. After all, would Jesus then be speaking directly to you, a person, or to you, a group of people? Or is Jesus speaking to you or about you? Second person, thou, you, with a verb ending est. Third person, he, him, ends with ETH, with the E being dropped if the verb ends in a vowel. We need to know exactly who God talks to. When God speaks through his word, we know exactly to whom he is addressing, because there is no mistaking the clarity of the King James English. Is it okay to replace ye with you? You and ye are often used in the same sentence. They're both plural pronouns, so yes, you would have a problem. The difference is that ye is the subject, whereas you is the objective, the object. The two cannot be accurately interchanged. Here is an example. The clarity and depth of the grammar is shown in Colossians chapter 1 verses 21 to 23. Replace ye with you, ? And you that were sometimes alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now hath he reconciled in the body of his flesh through death, to present you holy and unblameable and unreprovable in his sight, if ye continue in the faith. Taken from Colossians chapter 1, 21 to 23, verses 21 to 23. What does this mean? Well, notice that he, Jesus Christ, is doing the work throughout the first three clauses or parts of this. You are the object, you receive what he does. So the verbs alienated, reconciled, and present, the pronoun used is the object of the verb, the objective plural you. So you receive the action of those words, alienated, reconciled, present. Now let's look at this. After the colon, the change of responsibility is indicated by the use of ye. The subjective plural pronoun you are the gets changed after the colon to if ye continue. Ye, all of you, are responsible for what you do. I mean, this verse alone and this grammar alone clears up a lot of the problems that people have between law and grace, between works and not works. It's the grace of God being done unto you if ye continue. Ye is the subject of the verb. It was the Colossians' responsibility to continue in the faith. Establishing major doctrinal points. The use of ye and you clears up the argument about God's grace and our works. Faith and works, it does. There are major doctrinal shifts on this subject simply because people do not clearly understand the grammar. Mid-sentence change of address, we've seen it before, because the King James Bible employs the entire range of pronouns and not merely the blurry and uncertain you. Changes of address in mid-sentence can be recognized. A speaker can start addressing a group and then narrow his focus to a single individual, or start with a single person and later include others. For an example, Jesus makes a change of address in his famous Sermon on the Mount. He begins by addressing a group, ye, and assigns the verbs to them. Ye are, ye have heard, making the hearers the subject. He continues by addressing the individual. Christ quotes from the Old Testament using the singular thou, which designates individual responsibility. So we have in Matthew 5 verse 21, ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not kill. So the question gets asked, is you a bad word? Well, you has unfortunately replaced ye, thou, and thee in current speech and literature, including the so-called easy-to-read modern Bibles. Even you itself is subject to contemporary slang replacements like you all or yous, or making it even worse. Despite abundant everyday misuse, the you is legitimate and is used in the King James Bible as a second person plural objective pronoun, only used in the plural form when it's the object of the verb. And I say unto you, my friends. Luke chapter 12 verse 4. And here we come to the end of chapter 7. And I look forward to catching up with you again in chapter 8.